Chapter 5, Deliverance. Several men from the camp came running up the trail to meet the slave caravan. Following them came a white man. The leader of the Redcaps was tooting his horn and waving and shouting his greetings. The Redcaps seemed very proud of all the slaves they were leading down the trail. The captives now numbered 84, 82 Manganja, after the man who had tried to escape was shot, and the two Ajawa boys. But several slaves, like Chuma, were either injured or seriously sick and barely able to travel. If the trip continued much longer, several would die. But to the boys' surprise, as soon as the first men from the camp met the leader of the Redcaps, they grabbed him and took away his gun. Two strong men held his arms, while several other men ran on up the trail and tried to catch the other Redcaps. But seeing what had happened to their leader, the other Redcaps disappeared into the forest. "Well, what's happening?" asked Chuma, bewildered. By then Dauma had caught up with the boys. She stood behind Wikitani, looking around him like a child hiding behind her mother. "I think the white man is stealing us from the Redcaps, and without paying for us either," said Wikitani. "He has double-crossed them." Chuma was glad to see the Redcaps run off. But if the white man was stealing the slaves, it didn't help them any. A slave was a slave, whether someone paid for you or not. The white man might even be crueler. "I hope we don't have to travel any more until my leg gets better," he grumbled. He hopped around on his good leg, keeping his balance by holding on to Wikitani's shoulder. The black men who held the leader of the Redcaps were yelling at him, demanding to know where he had gotten the slaves, from what tribe they came from, and for whom he worked. "Quiet," ordered Wikitani as Dauma started to say something. "This might be our chance to escape." The older boy began guiding his friend back through the crowd that was gathering around the Redcap and the new strangers who held him. "Wait," said Dauma, pulling away from Wikitani. The white man had arrived at the top of the hill and was questioning the Redcap. Chuma thought Dauma was only interested in seeing a white man for the first time. He was curious too, but Wikitani interrupted his observation. "We can't wait," the older boy said. "This may be our only chance to get away." "No," insisted Dauma. "Listen. The white man's not stealing us." The stranger was speaking Manganja. She could understand him better than the boys and was listening closely, trying to figure out what the white man was doing. "He's telling the Redcap that taking slaves is wrong. He says his God is against slavery. He's talking about letting us go free." "It's a trick," said Wikitani. "We've all heard that the white men buy slaves." "Then just look what's happening," said Dauma. Some of the men from the tent village were tying the Redcap's arms behind his back. Others started going among the slaves, cutting the ropes that bound the women together by their necks. As the truth of what was happening began to dawn on the weary travelers, shouts of joy spread through the column, and the people began to run forward to be released. In their eagerness, many who were still fastened by the neck rope got tangled up. Some fell to the ground, others were choking or calling for help. Dauma ran to her mother and tried to help her get untangled. Then the girl guided her mother to one of the strangers with a knife. A cloud of dust soon concealed the eager slaves. "I don't like it," said Wikitani. "I don't trust the white man. He's evil." He pushed Chuma away from the trail toward the forest. "Let's get out of here before he can do whatever he's up to. Look, he's got the Redcap's gun." Chuma's leg hurt fiercely as the bushes at the edge of the forest tore at it. "I don't think I can keep going," he told Wikitani. "Can't we just hide here for a little until we see if the white man's lying? That won't do much good if they start looking for us." "But why would they look for us?" Chuma sat down and rubbed his leg gently. "Look, even if the white man is planning to take us for slaves, he doesn't know how many captives there are. And since we're not Manganja, no one else will miss us either." Still not convinced, Wikitani sat down beside Chuma. "Well, most of the Manganja think this whole thing is our fault anyway, so if we're gone, maybe that will just make them sure we were involved." Wikitani remained quiet for a few minutes. Then he said, "But I don't want Dauma to think that." "What do you mean?" "She trusts us. I don't want her to think we lied to her." Chuma moved some branches aside with his hand so he could look out. "I don't think you need to worry about that," he said. "They really are letting the captives go. Look, they're cutting the yokes off the men." Wikitani peered through the bushes. Several of the strangers were gathered around as the white man used a saw to cut the yoke that held one man's neck. Suddenly it gave way and the yoke was pried off the man's neck. A great cheer went up among the men as the freed slave jumped to his feet and began dancing around. Other slaves were calling, "Me! Me next!" The white man gave the saw to one of his men, who proceeded to free the rest. As the boy watched from the shadows of the forest, several of the newly freed women and the children began gathering wood for fires and setting up the heavy metal pots to cook food, right there along the trail. Then the boys noticed that the white man was walking among the people, giving some instructions. They could hear his booming voice as he spoke in the Manganja language. "Set up another pot over here. Sure, go ahead and use the Red Caps' corn. Use any of their supplies. You need food, and they were making you carry it, so eat up. Have a feast." A little farther up the trail, the man knelt down beside a woman who was sitting in the dust with a sick child in her lap. With kind hands, the man felt the child's forehead and then pressed gently at different points on the child's stomach. He talked quietly to the women for a few minutes, then opened a large pouch that hung from his shoulder and poured a thick brown liquid from a bottle into a small cup, which he held to the child's lips. The child coughed as he drank it, and then made a sour face. The white man laughed and stood to his feet. Chuma struggled to get to his feet. "He's not going to make slaves of us," he said. "I'm not staying here in the bushes any more." "Wait," protested Wikitani. "Maybe he poisoned that child. You saw how he laughed. It's better to stay hidden a little longer until we're sure." "Maybe for you," said Chuma, "but my leg hurts, and he's a medicine man." He hobbled out onto the trail. "Doctor, doctor," he called out to the white man. "Would you fix my leg?" Chuma followed the white man as he attended to other people who were sick. Finally, the doctor noticed the boy behind him and turned. "What's the matter, son?" "I've never seen slavers take cripples before." "I'm not a cripple. My leg's been hurt," said Chuma, turning so the strange man could see the back of his calf. He tried to stop his leg from trembling, but it hurt too much. "My, what happened to you?" the man exclaimed as he stooped down to get a closer look. "It was a whip," said Chuma. Yes, but it's also infected. It looks very nasty." He withdrew a small silver tube from his bag and squeezed something from it that looked to Chuma like white grease and smeared it on the wound. Then he wrapped the boy's leg with a clean strip of cloth. "There," he said as he stood up. "Now run over there and get yourself something to eat." But Chuma didn't move. Standing next to the tall white man, he took a long look. The man wore a blue suit and blue hat, nothing like Chuma had ever seen before. His face was rough, and his sharp eyes were set deep below bushy eyebrows. Very strange, Chuma thought. "Doctor," Chuma said, working up courage to speak, "the Red Caps tied us up and starved us, but you cut the ropes and tell us to eat. What sort of a man are you? We thought all white men took slaves. Where do you come from?" "Sadly, you are right, young man. Many white men buy slaves, and the Red Caps have been helping them. But I was sent to Africa by God, the great God who created everyone and wants you to be free." "Your God does not like slavery?" asked Chuma. By then Wikitani was standing beside him. "He hates it," said the man as he stroked a large mustache that completely covered his upper lip. "If you want, I will tell you more about God later, but now I must see to the others." As the boys gathered with some of the other freed captives around one of the pots bubbling over a hastily built fire, they were distracted by a commotion down the trail. Chuma turned just in time to see the Red Cap leader running at top speed into the jungle. Two of the men from the tent village ran after him, but the white doctor called out in his loud voice, "Let him go! He'll never bother these people again."